On to the last match of the tournament. This time it's for all the money. That voice in the background here is NC Game Wizard. I am Philophenix, and we have the top 4 players in this tournament: Shell Cheesy, Base Invader, Lee Kish, and Dryad. What do you think about this map?
That's correct. I like Nomad on this map is my first thoughts. I usually think that when I see this much yellow, and if you're down here in the lower right corner...
It is an electronics colony.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe
it's not...
you don't pick up Nomad first. Maybe that's like a third found you do. The question is, what better founds are there? Are there any better founds? I mean, you obviously always can go expansive. I'm not sure that expansives can be strictly better.
It depends on how you feel about carbon and scavengers. I know people out there who think that 3 low carbon's no good, but in this case, I'd be looking at that patch in the north. Even if it's not really near anything but ice, you do have water.
Now Base Invader should go for that Nomad lap for the last found.
Yeah.
I'd say simply to be something different.
Scavenger HQ.
They're gonna instead go for Scavenger, so nobody willing to brave the electronics. We have Shell Cheesy going for an expansive in one of the spots I was thinking might work, because it's just kind of in the middle of everything. You're not too far away from the silicon, you're not too far away from water, you got iron nearby. The only thing about this is you're a little bit constrained for building, but they're going to be able to upgrade HQ2 first.
Shell Cheesy and Base Invader are both in an HQ that I would consider to be dangerous when you've got these EMPs on the map, because those EMPs are about taking down bases that are squished together, and when you've got a found like those two have gotten, you're going to be stuck with a squished found. That's just all there is to it.
An expansive HQ
yeah, Dryad. Alright, if Dryad can control their debt from shipping, which right now isn't an issue,
a Scavenger HQ
their found should be okay. They are going to be able to grab this medium water pump from by Lee Kish, and then another water, so Lee, who also can upgrade just now, they picked an interesting scientist spot, going for the electrolysis reactor first.
We call it the no steel scientist, and
it can work.
With these pirates on the map, it's disincentivized, we'll just put it that way.
Right. So, yeah, the pirates there could make this pretty painful, plus only going to get 2 steel mills, not a triangle. And unlike expansives, which have half-price steel buildings, scientists pay full price for everything. And this water patch...
Yeah?
The water patch that they were going for is getting eaten up by everybody else.
Yes, that is very true. Shell is buying into glass like nobody's business, which is what you want to do when you've got 4 glass-consuming HQs on the map. You know you're going to need 115 glass. I mean, that's probably your HQ and then your next HQ upgrade right there. So having that in the bank means that it's only your ability to make money that's stopping you from upgrading, and you're making it more difficult for your opponents because they can't pick up that glass at the cheap price you did. Now they're stuck at $109 a unit glass after that shortage. Also, a shortage happened, by the way, and it made glass even more valuable. So great move from Shell Cheesy there.
Now Base Invader's going into, I like this, 2 glass kilns. I probably only needed to go into 1 elemental quarry. They were grabbing some of that water from Lee, and then they decided against it. I still think grabbing at least 1 water would be a good idea. Sure, it's cheap now, but you don't have good access to it long term.
Yes.
So ensuring that you at least have some decent water that could have adjacency bonus could be a good idea.
Another powerful move is if you can't get good water, if you can get a low next to some good water, you can typically use a mutiny, and the adjacency bonus will help make up for that fact and will make the mutiny more effective than it would otherwise be, and it generally can buoy you in circumstances where you can't get what you need. And yeah, there's slant. I mean, that's more of something you plan for. A mutiny at 2,000, that might be something you can reach right now.
Yep.
But at $6 a unit water, maybe you don't want to.
The Shell Cheesy is sitting on as much aluminum as they're going to need for maybe the rest of the game. 650. They could
But,
rotate those aluminum panels
yes.
out, those aluminum mines out into some solar panels or something like that. Only 2.9k each.
Once you've got what you need for the game, and realistically 700 of basically any resource, except maybe silicon for a skip or a nomad, is sufficient for the game. You probably want to transition those buildings into something else. Power is always a good option.
There's one location where 700 is not enough, and that is Io, because the space elevators need, what is that, 400? 600? Something ridiculous amount of aluminum. But this isn't Io, this is Mars.
Scavenger HQ has been upgraded.
Not really anything I could say to disagree with that. That's correct.
Base Invaders up at HQ4. They're in 4 greenhouse farms. Would like to see them grab some water now. It is cheap now. With this much water production on the board, it's not going to be cheap for very long. Look at that steep incline on the water graph there.
And yet someone somewhere is sending out a little bit. Wondering if it's Shell Cheesy, maybe? I'm sure it's not a huge deal. Really fortunate time for Base Invader to have switched into those solar panels. I was a little dubious about push enough for him, but then the solar flare came in and
1.8k in pure money.
Yep, and someone did what they absolutely had to do there. It sucks that they couldn't trust to put it down directly on the patent lab, but you've gotta stop that money flow because people will win. They'll win quick.
Yeah. I mean, still getting 500 in pure cash. Not bad for a single tile.
Yeah.
At this stage in the game. Lee's going for a patent rush, going for teleportation, which is probably necessary given their steel situation.
What would you put carbon scrubbing at? Maybe not that high if you're Base Invader.
Congratulations.
Yes, for 24, I mean, that's a good pickup.
Maybe not that high when you have carbon yourself.
That's kind of, yeah. I guess it's depriving. You know, it's kind of... It does let you have, you know, the decision process where you can say, alright, I'm not going to need more than this low and this medium carbon. Because of the fact that I'm going to use those for upgrades, and I'm just going to make what I need in electronics, say, and I won't need the carbon because of carbon scrubbing.
Yep.
So not eating your own supplies is a good thing when you need to upgrade. Nomads have that trouble where they need to put down solar panels, they need to put down glass, and they realize, oh, I'm not upgrading as quick anymore.
Lee had the ability to upgrade, they just lost it. Triad has the ability to upgrade. Both are probably a little bit worried about the cash on hand that Base Invader has. But Base Invader's almost paid through all of that debt from that auction already. Which is a bit ridiculous. They did mutiny a geothermal plant.
Expansive HQ has been upgraded.
So, doing quite well. Lee getting HQ4, going into nanotechnology for their pan lab. Good choice with this many expansives. Virtual reality would also be a good choice. Putting down some glass kilns. Can't disagree there. They rotated. They're deciding to kill the price of water, or stockpile a bunch of water. Not sure I agree with that decision. Shell Cheesy HQ 5. Did we lose you again, NC Game Wizard?
No, you're just doing a really good job, and honestly, we're in a spot now where everybody's just kind of trying to catch up. Shell Cheesy actually has kind of launched ahead, but they're in debt, and so Base Invader could pick his spot here.
Going for Lee. I'm not well, that was a really good freeze. The one problem with Lee's found here, the Base Invader might just barely have enough income to pull this off.
I see this as justified, because while it is very difficult for Lee to actually move himself into a game-winning position from here, this is what we call a Mondo good subsidiary.
Yeah, scientists with teleportation and nanotech.
Yeah, it doesn't need steel because it doesn't need to make transitions. It just needs to get into what's profitable and then make your life easier because you don't have to make as much of those resources to stay out of debt.
Yep. Unfortunately, Shell Cheesy was busy paying down debt, so they couldn't attack Base Invader, and then Dryad. Well, they did use a cooldown somewhere. Not entirely sure where, but that would have been a good time to, you know, toss an EMP on somebody who's going to get a scientist with teleportation.
Looking at the chat log, Dryad appears to have dropped an EMP somewhere. So
okay, so maybe they were
yes,
the one who did attack Base Invader, but unfortunately it was too little too late.
Yes.
Well, Base Invader is in a pretty good spot. They picked up the only thing is that they're on HQ4, and they do have to upgrade.
Got a little bit too much silicon for a scavenger. 700 to be exact.
Yeah, time to rotate out of it into something else.
Yes.
The issue that they may run into.
Still no water, by the way, on Base Invader.
Yeah, no water. Well, their subs killing the price of water, though. They indirectly have water.
Yes.
Question is, alright, can Shell Cheesy and Dryad team up to take out Base Invader? It's in both of their best interest to do so.
Well, it depends on how this Offworld goes. Shell Cheesy putting up an Offworld does not have a hologram for it. With 81,000 somewhere, even with a lot of that being to the Offworld, finding the money to get into C-level debt. Yes. Finding what you need to get out of that D so that you can buy the Goon Squad and hologram that you need to make this play, because an Offworld can save you if you're on the border at D-level debt. It really can, but it has to be a sneaky Offworld that people don't see until a little bit too late.
Yeah,
that's not the case.
One of their other problems right now, they're earning more debt because they're sitting on 3 solar panels at $13 power, 2 geothermal plants, and food is $2.63.
Let's also not forget that water, while we're sure it's going to become more valuable as time goes on, is currently $2 a unit, and he's got those 3 investments into it. That's usually fine for an expansive, but he has a lot of water. Time to do something with the water, to make food.
Yeah, I think, like, they're still making, like, if they rotated the solar panels and they didn't go into that Offworld, and they teamed up with Dryad, Base Invader might have bit the dust.
Yeah. As is, I see Base Invader moving decently comfortably into the endgame here.
It would have been pretty close for Base Invader.
One thing I think to point out, now that I've had a little bit of time to actually have an independent thought for myself, because it takes me a little while sometimes, is all I'm saying. Anyway, is these solar panels, something players don't realize is we do discourage having buildings away from your HQ, but you can see here these tiles between Shell Cheesy and Shell Cheesy's other tiles in the solar panels. They're not usable. You can't put pirates down on them. So these could be farms. And it would not be bad at all, because that, while there's still a shipping cost associated, is entirely safe as long as there's no magnetic storms.
Yep, those would have been fine to be farms. Not ideal, as you'd still be gaining the debt from them, but, you know, an interesting choice for Shell Cheesy to go into Dryad. The problem is,
at this point, Shell Cheesy's in the death throes.
I don't think Shell Cheesy's not going to be able to buy out Dryad fast enough to be competitive with Base Invader. It's team up together or lose.
Sometimes, when you're in a situation where there's one big scary guy that you and another person have to fight, you and the other person get into a little fist fight over who has to fight the scary guy first. And it's a fight that you can't really win and you can't really lose, because either way you're just making it more difficult for you to fight the person who's the genuine threat.
Right,
That's kind of what you see sometimes.
Shell Cheesy is $200,000 away from the buy on Dryad right now. They're making $31,000 a launch. They are losing an incredible amount of debt per second. What is it? Okay, fine. It's only negative 300, 132. So it's
at this point the interest is the real devil.
The interest is going to be the killer. They're going to go from D+7 to D+4 to D+7 or D+8. And their stock price is going to tank all the way down to somewhere in the teens or lower.
Get a better bond rating, which might not be the most accurate way to say this, but in order to get to C-level debt, they need to pay to $152,000. So they're going to need to pay out $140,000 in order to just get to the point where they're only dying to interest.
And now Base Invader says, I'm gonna take that cheap stock and thank you for the present in Dryad, by the way. That subsidiary is making Base Invader a healthy $990 per second, almost 1,000. Base Invader is also still making a decent amount of money themselves. They're going into slant drilling and a hacker array.
Something that's always worth thinking about.
Still haven't gone into water.
You know, they're surviving. And that subsidiary means that they really don't need the water.
Well, the subsidiary is out of water too.
No, I know. But it's just making so much profit. I mean, it should be fine. I mean, as long as these farms don't get out of hand, which they are turning themselves off, so it should be fine.
Yeah, too bad Shell Cheesy, is the person with plenty of excess water. And, yeah, they're now D+11. That's a little bit off, I guess. Not D+7, D+11, but they rhyme.
So in a free-for-all situation, an important thing to keep in mind is it's a lot easier to stop one person from making $500 a second off of a single tile like an Offworld, whereas it's really difficult to stop an entire subsidiary because that's all of their buildings. And so Base Invader's making $1,000 a second, and it's also $1,000 a second that's really difficult to attack. Whereas obviously the Offworld, Shell Cheesy can't actually defend it. When you're in D-level debt, you can't get into the black market to buy goon squads, to buy most things.
You could throw an EMP down on all of these electrolysis reactors that are making north of 150 each.
Here's the problem with that. Then you're leaving your opponent's buildings that are actually directly his. It's really a situation where there's no right way to move forward except for don't let them get that much of a subsidiary.
And if they do, try to buy them out instead of
teamwork, guys.
Going against each other. Because there was that moment in time where Shell Cheesy canceled out of their Offworld, and then they and Dryad both bought into Base Invader. Have been really close as to whether they got a majority buy in Base Invader or not. And Dryad was willing to do their part.
That said, it really doesn't even feel good to be in that spot where you're trying to rely on someone else who you aren't really communicating with to do the right thing by you. And it's even questionable, is that even really the right thing? Because it's very difficult to split in free-for-all the big player and have that split somehow be equitable.
It's the right thing because give yourself a chance at winning versus just lose. Pick the give yourself a chance at winning.
The key word there is chance, because it's always going to be difficult in these kind of a situation.
And Base Invader just received $52,000 off of that interest tick on Shell Cheesy. Thanks to financial instruments.
Optimization.
My goodness.
Successful.
Sometimes financial instruments doesn't pay out, and other times
it's worth its weight in gold.
Yep.
So this is going to be a relatively straightforward win for Base Invader. 2 subsidiaries.
Probably could win already if they sold out those 2 clips of stock.
Yeah, they only need another 300. $100,000 to win.
Yeah. So.
Offworld shipment
Well done
launched.
by Base Invader,
Look at all
identifying
the money.
that early majority buy and then going for it.
Yeah.
The engineers have advanced our
I do
production.
like to see players with that sort of aggressive instinct.
I do like that Base Invader did think about optimizations and patents. Going for the late game strategy, making money is usually not enough. Sometimes on Ceres it can be, but on Mars you almost always need to have gotten at least a patent to fix up whatever it is about your HQ that's not perfect, and then some optimizations to really make that cash appear.
Push you into the next level.
It's not so bad to spend 100,000 on an Offworld if you've got your steel optimizations down, because then you're making enough steel to maybe make that okay.
The Offworld
But-
market is finished and awaiting orders.
You can theory craft about it all day, but at the end of the day, the reason why these advanced buildings are locked behind being at a certain HQ level is because if you got into them too quickly, it would be unfair because they're really good.
Well, there is a faction that can get into them too quickly, and that's elites, and then they just die because they don't have the upgrade
The black
resources
market
they
is
need.
open for business.
See, a different faction would have the claims that they need to get that done, is all I'm saying. I firmly believe that at some point or another, it was decided that you couldn't have a patent lab at level 1 because it was just too good.
You can get it to HQ2 though.
Optimization routines successful. Offworld
I have
market is
seen Death
assembled.
Tacticus win
Our
off of
fortune awaits.
HQ2 patent rush as a scientist. I don't recommend trying it at home though.
No, try it at home, but don't expect to win. Okay, Kish, okay. Well, sometimes you buy, sometimes you get bought.
It was at that point, to be fair to Lee, like, it wasn't immediately obvious that Base Invader had the income when they upgraded.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden it was, oh, they do have the income. Oops. I
You
made a
can't
terrible
necessar-
mistake.
exactly. Sometimes when you're looking at the amount of cash someone has on hand, and even if you watch it for a few seconds to see kind of what are they getting in roughly a tick, a second, and what you find is, oh, they're not making so much as I thought. It's not so bad. And the thing is, if you look over their HQ, they're making a transition.
Yeah.
And in 10 seconds or so, it's not going to be a comfortable time for you. So map awareness is a huge thing.
Now, if we look at the balance sheet just a little bit, we can see Base Invader, those early buys into subsidiaries, $612,000 in dividend revenue.
My goodness.
That's a wee bit more than Shell Cheesy's $183,000 in Offworld money that they made. Although, to be fair, that doesn't count Shell Cheesy's Offworld launches after they were purchased. But overall, a very strong game from Base Invader, and we can see why they've won 3 games in this tournament and why they are our champions of the
Congratulations,
8 player
Base Invader.
tournament.
Yes.
So this tournament did go a little bit longer than usual simply because we've had so many subs, and I do want to give a shout out to Polina for managing everything behind the scenes, finding all our subs.
Thank you, Polina.
This was definitely a more annoying job than normal.